Hi, my name is Alyssa Harris. I'm going to be talking about my fitness education presentation. I'm going to be reviewing the CAPS that we did and what they meant and how I created the things that I created. So we're going to start off with the health and movement assessments. The tools that I used the PAR-Q and U questionnaire, which is a series of questions that the client answers that are going to highlight any problems that they might have, highlight any risk factors, and the functional movement screen. The functional movement screen consists of 7 exercises, including the deep squat, the hurdle step, the inline lunge, the shoulder mobility test, active straight leg raise, trunk stability, push-up, and rotary stability. In the functional movement screen, it's important we're looking at how the person can perform these different actions. Is there stability with them? Are they losing their balance? Can they not finish the test? And you're ranking these athletes 1 through 3, 3 being they did it perfectly, they did it well. There are also many of these exercises that are done both sides. For example, the hurdle step. You're stepping over with your right foot and with your left foot at different times. They're going to take the lowest score as that person's score to see that that's a place that they need to improve upon. The PAR-Q and U, like I said, it's identifying risk factors. It's very important on the PAR-Q and U for the client to be honest. If they're not honest, then there's no evidences of the risk factors that might cause them trouble in the future. So it's really important for those athletes and the clients that you may have to be honest on the PAR-Q and U. Results and influences. So I had my client throughout this process was Joshua Harris. I did the PAR-Q and U and the functional movement screen on him, and this is the results that I gathered. That he has no major risk factors. This was primarily from the PAR-Q and U. He answered no, or that he didn't have any of those signs or symptoms, which means that number 2 here, he's able to become more physically active if he's not already. He doesn't need to see a doctor. There's nothing stopping him. He can be physically active. The number 3 on the FMS, he scored well, but he didn't score perfect. So as he scored well, but there was a lack of shoulder mobility. This was shown in the deep squat. The deep squat, when he has the bar over his head and you want to keep it nice and straight, his arms moved forward, meaning that he had trouble keeping that shoulder mobile and straight up. Also on just the shoulder mobility test, where it's right arm over and left arm back. Those he scored lower on, particularly in the shoulder mobility test. He scored a 2 and then a 1. So overall, his score would be a 1 because you're doing it bilaterally on both shoulders. There was also a showing on number 5 here of a lack of some abdominal strength. That was shown particularly in the inline lunge. As he was going down, lunging forward, he had a little bit of instability there, showing that his core can be strengthened up, and that would be something that he can work on. So this brings us to my periodization program. Here's just a snapshot of my mesocycles, the things that I had him to do. So his goals. You can see on here, there's bench press, shoulder press, dumbbell bicep curl, lat pull down, back squat, different weeks, different reps, different percentages. So we can go in a little bit closer here. His goals were to increase his core strength. That would help him with his inline lunge as he's coming down. And then his secondary goal was also to improve flexibility or improve mobility of his shoulder, of his the whole glenohumeral joint, everything going on there to improve that flexibility. A linear periodization style was chosen. Though the linear periodization style name is a little bit of a misnomer, it's not straight linear. You are going up and down as you're going. This was chosen because it may reduce peripheral fatigue and injury. That was shown by Half and Triplett. The order of some of these exercises, I started each day with the multi-joint exercises. These are more difficult neurologically and often take a lot more strength. So those are first in order that there's no injury and that they can be done to their fullest extent. I alternated between agonist and antagonist muscle, so I'm going to use one side first, I'm going to use the other side. I also made sure that smaller exercises were last, like calf raises. Those are very isolated exercises. So as we're starting with the multi-joint exercises, we're going to move down to the very specific ones, and that's like the calf raises. Or an isolated bicep curl is not a multi-joint exercise. I also included in my periodization workout, I included aerobic endurance for that general health body. I didn't include that as many days a week because that was not his focus, but he did have that throughout the program. I chose an upper lower body split, 2 days per week of each upper and lower body workout. So he would do upper body, lower body, like an abdominal work day, and then upper and lower body again. He also was varied in order for continued stimulus. So you want to change it up. You don't want your body to get used to doing the exact same thing every day. If you are doing the same workouts, the same exercises, you're not going to reach all the small points, all the little stabilizing muscles. You want to always have different things for continued stimulus. That'll result in better long-term results. I ended with an unloading week. It had decreased load and intensity so that potentially after he did these 2 mesocycles, he could have full recovery and then either be ready to go into competition or be ready to go into a new mesocycle. But that unloading week allowed him to have that full recovery for his muscles. For him, he was doing low reps because he was working on abdominal strength particularly. So we used exercises that included his obliques, his upper abs, his lower abs, his back, because you always want to make sure that you're doing those agonist and antagonist muscles, not overloading one. So we can see that in quads and hamstrings. We can see that in chest and upper back, but you can also see it in lower back and abdominal muscles. So we're making sure that we keep that as an equal. So he had low reps with moderate sets, making sure he has 2 to 3 minutes rest in between. To improve that strength. This is a link to my exercise technique for the upper and lower body. For the multi-joint exercises, I chose a bench press and I chose back squat. So now going into the application and faith integration. So how it applies to me in my future career or my current career, I am a teacher and a coach right now. I teach PE and health, and I coach volleyball and basketball. I'm using this verse to guide me through that, 1 Corinthians 9:24 through 27. I know it's a common verse, but I'll read it. Do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but only one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may win. Everyone who competes in the games exercises self-control in all things. They then do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we an imperishable. Therefore, run in such a way as not without aim. So this is talking about how we run our lives, and it's comparing it to the athletic world. So oftentimes people use it when they're thinking about athletics, but as a teacher and a coach, I can think about what have I learned through this course? What am I learning through this program that can make me a better teacher? One, being excellent in what I'm doing. As Christians, we don't want to sink back and be the ones who are behind everything that's happening. But we want to be the setters, be advancing knowledge, advancing kinesiology. So I want to be running in that race, running ahead of the pack, not lagging behind. I want to be excellent in what I'm doing. And exercising self-control are the things that, how can the things that I learn and that I'm spending self-control learning these things, how can I teach that to my students and to my athletes? There's going to be things in life that you're going to have to exercise self-control in order to be able to do. In order to be able to bench press this much, you're going to have self-control and self-discipline to be able to keep going in order to get there. So in life, in my teaching and coaching, I'm going to run in such a way that has an aim. And that aim is being, is ultimately Christ, but it's being refined by these health assessments. How can I assess my athletes? How can I see that like this athlete or this group of kids really needs to work on shoulder mobility, because I watch them do some of these functional movement screens, or we're in the weight room for volleyball practice and I need to show them how to properly and safely execute a certain exercise. And then how can we demonstrate Christ likeness as a person who might have clients, or as somebody who's working in a physical activity situation? I took these 3 verses. Titus 1:8. Rather, he must be hospitable, one who loves what is good, who is self-controlled, upright, holy, and disciplined. I highlighted some of these words that really popped out to me. This is talking about we need to be people who are self-controlled and disciplined. And athletics is such a great place to practice that and to see that in life. We've got to be self-controlled and disciplined in our actions. And therefore, we need to teach our clients or our athletes to be self-controlled and disciplined as well. They're not going to reach the goals that they want to do without being self-controlled or disciplined. The goals that they might have physically and the goals that they might have socially and spiritually and emotionally without being self-controlled and disciplined. 2 Corinthians 8:21 says, "For we are taking pains to do what is right, not only in the eyes of the Lord, but also in the eyes of man." So this is talking about both in the Lord and man, what is right. Sometimes those contradict, but oftentimes they don't. Oftentimes man says that we need to be honest, and man says that we need to do these things, and that's for sure what the Lord says to do. So this encompasses a lot of things as we're interacting with clients, as we're interacting with other people. Making sure we have integrity in what we're doing. Is what we're saying about these people the same as what we're saying to their face? That we're not talking behind their back, that we're not being rude and being wrongdoing in that way. Lastly, Colossians 3:12. "Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience." Compassion when they're having a rough day. Compassion when they're struggling through these goals that they have. Kindness. Am I yelling at my athletes in a demeaning manner? Or am I being kind to them? And holding them also to that self-controlled discipline. Humility. Maybe this comes easy to somebody, but it doesn't come easy to the other. Keeping that humble spirit. Gentle and patient. Always as we're teaching, always as we're directing people, being gentle and patient is going to be highlights for what we need to do. So that's how we can demonstrate Christ-likeness. There's a million more ways that we can do it, but these are just a couple. I hope that you understood my program and that as we go forward, it goes well and that everything is good. Here are my references as well.